Hello everyone, I'm Jonathan Little for PokerNews.com, here today with a hand from High Stakes Duel 2, Round 1, featuring Daniel Negreanu and Phil Hellmuth. This was an incredibly long, exciting match. Make sure you check it out on Poker Go. Also, you can follow all the poker news at PokerNews.com, so make sure you check them out. Also, recently I had both Daniel Negreanu and Phil Hellmuth on my YouTube channel, youtube.com/pokercoaching, for an interview. So make sure you check out those interviews. They discuss all sorts of topics, including heads up no limit hold'em. So make sure you check that out. Here we have a very interesting hand where Phil Hellmuth takes an interesting line with a very strong hand. So let's take a look at this. Daniel Negreanu makes a minimum raise off of a 50 big blind effective stack from the button/small blind. And Phil Hellmuth has king queen offsuit in the big blind. Look, you should probably just 3-bet this hand. It's really strong. Calling's fine too. You can kind of do whatever you want in this scenario. Given Negreanu seemed to be opening a pretty good amount, I think if anything you want to be 3-betting a little bit more. But Hellmuth typically took the passive lines where he did not get 2 out of line before the flop, and he seemed to try to avoid spots that could become marginal. And to be fair, if you do have Negreanu raising, you re-raise king queen, and then you get 4-bet, it is marginal. The thing is though, is that if you're known to be a little bit on the tighter side, he's not going to 4-bet you pretty much ever because he knows you're on the tighter side. And he's going to presume your 3-betting range must be strong. Anyway, Hellmuth calls, flop comes, jack, 5-2, all diamonds. Phil Hellmuth has the king of diamonds, so he has the second nut flush draw. He checks, Negreanu makes a tiny bet of 800 into the 3,200 pot. This is a situation where now Hellmuth can, again, go either way, but I think I probably prefer calling here, because now if he does raise to any amount, let's say 3,000, if Negreanu then re-raises, it actually becomes pretty bad, because Negreanu could have some ace of diamonds flush draw, which you're behind. He could also have flushes, which you're behind. He could have good jacks, which you're behind, right? So you see he could have a lot of hands that you're not in great shape against now if a lot of money does go into the pot, and all those hands make pretty logical sense to be in Negreanu's range at this point. Also, king high does have a little bit of showdown value, meaning that if you do check call here and it checks down and you miss, that's okay, because sometimes you end up winning the pot with the king high, right? I actually discussed this a lot in my cash game masterclass at pokercoaching.com, and right now you can actually get completely free access to it at pokercoaching.com/cash masterclass. This is a spot where we have what's essentially a pretty reasonable marginal made hand that also has a draw, and typically in this scenario, the marginal made hand component kind of overrides the draw component, and that results in you doing a lot of check calling. Anyway, Hellmuth does elect to call, which I think is fine and good. Turn is the 8 of diamonds. He makes the flush. That's lucky. He checks. Negreanu checks it back. Fine. Whenever you're out of position on the turn, it's perfectly viable to check when you make a very strong hand, because you want to do everything you can to keep your opponent betting when they have hands that are in terrible shape, like, let's say, 4-3 of clubs, right? For just a hand that's totally dead. So I definitely like Phil Hellmuth's check. Fine. River comes the queen of diamonds. Board is jack of diamonds, 5 of diamonds, 2 of diamonds, 8 of diamonds, queen of diamonds. 5 diamonds on the board. This is a situation where Hellmuth has, what is this? This is the third nuts. Notice that the ace of diamonds is the first nuts. I'm sorry, not the ace of diamonds, what am I saying? The 10-9 of diamonds for the straight flush is the first nuts. The ace of diamonds is the second nuts. King of diamonds is the third nuts, okay? So in this spot, what would you do if you were in Phil Hellmuth's shoes? Pot is 4,800, a whopping 6 big blinds, and you're playing 50-ish big blinds deep. In this spot, would you check the king high flush? Would you bet small, like 1,400? Would you bet medium, like 3,200? Or would you bet big, like 6,000? I want you to pause this video and write in the comment section below what you would do in this scenario. All right, did you do it? I sure hope so. Going through this active learning process is going to go a long way to helping you improve your poker skills. And right now at pokercoaching.com, you can get access to the Cash Game Masterclass for free. Again, pokercoaching.com/cash masterclass. After every video in that series, you get quizzed to make sure that you are actively learning what you are observing. Otherwise, you're just kind of hanging out, you know? Nothing wrong with hanging out, enjoying content, but at the same time, I want to make sure that you, my students, get as good at poker as you possibly can. So this is a spot where I think you can go either way, between checking, looking to check raise, or betting probably on the big side. And the reason I say on the big side is because in this scenario, you have to ask, what does Negreanu likely have? Negreanu likely has something like a marginal flush, like the 10 high flush, the 9 high flush, the 7 high flush, right? And all of those hands are going to call pretty much any bet, I have to presume. Or he's going to have just some total garbage. Total garbage in this scenario being even a hand like ace-jack, right? Because realize every hand's chopping in this scenario on this board, unless they have a flush, right? So this is a spot where when you bet big, you put Negreanu in a pretty nasty spot with all of his, hands that do not contain a diamond. And if he does have a diamond, I think it's just a pretty easy call, unless he thinks Hellmuth is really, really weak and passive. Now, I don't know how Negreanu perceives Hellmuth's overbets on the river. If he perceives Hellmuth's overbets to be very, very strong, then Negreanu may even fold out a hand like pocket sixes with the 6 of diamonds. But if he's going to perceive Hellmuth's overbets as, some bluffs and some effective nut hands, then I'm perfectly fine with going for the overbet. That said, I think given the way this match played out, again, you can check that out at Poker Go, I think he probably should have gone for something like a 3,500 bet or so, or a check. This time, Hellmuth does elect to check, and Negreanu bets. Now, I said I was going to go for a check raise. I'm going to go for a check raise here if Negreanu bets on the small or medium side. Because when he bets on the small or medium side, to some extent, that is going to depolarize his range, right? Usually in this spot, when he bets small, he's often going for thin-ish value, usually with a hand like 10 of diamonds, 9 of diamonds, 7 of diamonds, 6 of diamonds. Because, and put yourself in Phil Hellmuth's shoes, if you're sitting here with, ace-jack of hearts or something, obviously ace-jack of hearts often 3-bets pre-flop, but, who knows. If you do have a hand that is a chop in the scenario, getting really good pot odds, like, what's it going to do? How bad can it be to call? Or if Hellmuth has a hand like, 5-4 with the 4 of diamonds, right? He's probably going to call, right? So there certainly is value for Negreanu in betting in this spot. And typically when you bet on the smaller side, you're usually betting with your good but non-premium hands. And if you think about that range, this king of diamonds in Hellmuth's hand is actually really, really good. Now, of course, I have to imagine Negreanu is going to be somewhat balanced in the spot where he does have some ace of diamonds in this small betting range. It's actually half pot. And he's also going to have some straight flushes in the small betting range. However, there's only one combination of the straight flush. We're not so worried about that. Also, Negreanu maybe bets it on the turn, maybe not. He probably doesn't, to be fair. So he could have that one combination of straight flushes. He could also have some ace of diamonds, but you have to think the ace of diamonds are going to bet very frequently on the turn. Because in the scenario, if you have the ace of diamonds for the nuts on the turn, right, you're not going to let it go check, check. Usually you're going to bet it. And if you did have the ace of diamonds and you'd let it go check, check on the turn, on the river, I have to presume you're going to be betting on the bigger side instead of a half-ish pot bet. It's worth noting, by the way, half pot could either be a small bet or a big bet, depending on how big the current pot is, right? Because if the pot was already like 80 big blinds, then a half pot 40 big blind bet's actually pretty big. But here the pot is very small, only 6 big blinds, so this half pot bet is not quite as meaningful as it would be normally if the pot was substantially larger. So anyway, Negreanu does go for the small bet, and I think Hellmuth needs to put in the raise because Negreanu's range here is going to be some bluffs, which doesn't matter. It's going to be some hands like 10 of diamonds and 9 of diamonds, which I think you're going to have to call. And every once in a while, Hellmuth is going to raise, Negreanu's going to re-raise, and then, Hellmuth's going to have to make an unfortunate fold. A lot of people play poker with the idea that they don't want to be in a bad spot or a tricky spot because then they could make a big error. And to be fair, that's kind of true, right? Like if Hellmuth does check raise here and Negreanu shoves with only bluffs, and Hellmuth, for some reason, folds everything besides a straight flush, then obviously Hellmuth's just going to get completely run over. The thing is, though, is that I have to presume Negreanu is going to think that Hellmuth, who's probably playing a little bit tight and cautious, when he check raises the river, he just has a whole lot of nut hands. So it would be insane for Negreanu to run a bluff here. And in spots like this, where it would be insane for your opponent to run a bluff on you because they think you're on the tighter side, that actually lets you value bet perhaps a little bit thinner, like with the king of diamonds here. Now, I would not check raise the river with the 10 of diamonds or the 9 of diamonds if I was in Hellmuth's shoes, because then Negreanu could be value betting the king or the 10, right? But in this scenario, if there's ever a spot where this hand is a good check raise, I think this is probably it. Because the turn went check, check, in a spot where the ace of diamonds will often bet. And on the river, Negreanu often bets small. So there's a lot of information here that makes me think this is a spot where Negreanu's going to have a lot of non-ace of diamonds in his range. Hellmuth does just call, though. And Negreanu does turn up with the 10 of diamonds, 9 of hearts. So he did have one of these flushes. Now, would he have called the check raise? Some people may say, oh, he would never call the check raise because he knows that Hellmuth would only check raise with the nuts. The thing is, though, is that if you're check calling this king, maybe you actually are only check raising the nuts, and that makes your opponent's decisions really easy, right? You want to do everything you can to make your opponent's decisions difficult. And when you only opt to play big pots with the nuts, it makes your opponent's decisions really, really easy. Now, of course, Phil Hellmuth, world-class player, 15 World Series of Poker bracelets, infinite money in cashes, right? He gets out of line sometimes, and there's a lot of difficulty in playing against Phil Hellmuth because he'll just sporadically put in a bluff. That said, this is a spot where I don't think he's going to be putting in all that many bluffs because most people don't put in all that many bluffs here because you realize Negreanu could just have a lot of diamonds. They're going to decide to call the raise, right? Like this hand. So, interesting spot, but I think Phil Hellmuth probably played this one just a little bit cautiously, and it ended up resulting in him not getting full value in this particular hand. That's going to be it for today. Hope you enjoyed this video for Poker News. If you did, click the like and subscribe button below. Also, click the notification bell. About 10.63% of you have clicked the notification bell. You might as well up that to 10.68%. Thank you. Ding, ding, ding. Good luck in your games. Have a great, great week, and I'll talk to you next time. Hello there. Yeah, I'm talking to you. You want me to let you in on one little secret to take your poker skills to the next level? All you have to do is click the subscribe button right here. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah.
Very nice.